Happy Friday night. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deana. It is great to see you. It is Friday. It's one of our Halloween episodes. We have one more on Monday because, of course, Monday is the day. I've just been sitting around waiting for this to start. I have been so excited about tonight. Not exactly. I have plenty to do, but I've been super excited about tonight. I hope you are too. Today is going to be a real nostalgic episode about celebrating Halloween over the years with some history, some lore, some trivia, a few games. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to touch on a lot of subjects. So let me get right in there. I have a feeling, content wise, I'm going to be way over. I'm going to stand because I get so restless when we're doing this. So I'm just going to stand. I wish you could, maybe you can see. Let's see. Can you see what I got going on here? Oh, you could see the stuff that fell on the floor too. I got on a full get up today, and I don't know why, because I know you can only see me from here to here, but I know that I feel very Halloweeny, and I hope you do too. And whether you celebrate Halloween or not, and it's not within your comfort zone, I hope that some of the ideas tonight will be interesting, inspiring. We're going to look at some rug design as well. Of course, we're going to cross over as often as we can. Kaz, it's great to see you, and I can't wait to see you in person next month. I mean, it's next month, but it's so soon because we're right at the end of the month, aren't we? Ooh. And Kirsten, great to see you. Halloween special, creepy and dark in Vermont. Here too, it is the right mood, isn't it? It really feels. I don't know what's going on with rain this weekend, by the way. I'm hoping that it is not kicking up. I want the kids to have a really happy trick-or-treating night. If they don't, we're going to have to do that trick-or-treating in the mall thing, which is definitely not my first choice. Mom, great to see you. Happy cocktail night. Happy Friday. Barbara, great to see you. I hope I see you on Sunday for the design like the fairy tale storybook class. I ran the first sort of episode of it on Wednesday. These are independent episodes, so Sunday is the second and last episode of designing like the fairy tale storybook. On Wednesday it went so well. It was so exciting to hear people chiming in with different ideas and working on sketches and evolving different ideas together. So much fun. If you love storytelling, you love rug making, you love design, there's another chance to catch that on Sunday. Robyn, I missed you and I got your message. It happens, doesn't it? Super fun. Cheers, my dears. If you're going to say it, I'm going to do it. I got to show you what I've got tonight. It's a crazy one. I figured if not tonight, then when? Fat Orange Cat Trick or Treat Kittens. I mean, how could I pass up a label like this? How cute is this? And you know what? It's a beer. You know what it's infused with? Candy corn. Is that even possible, or did I get scammed? I mean, it does have the essence of candy corn, and man, tonight's the night for it on our Halloween episode. Carol, good to see you. Another Wisconsinite checking in. Was it 52 today, Kaz? That is a good temperature. It was nice and warm here too. I dare say it's Indian summertime right now. Not surprised with the state of the atmosphere, but nonetheless, Linda, great to see you in Massachusetts. Karen, great to see you. Cheers, my dears. Linda B, cheers, my dears. I love all these spooky icons. Oh, I just reminded myself I was going to try to figure out technology wise how to get a cool background for us tonight for the stream. I'll see if I can figure out by Monday. I don't have that much brain power and I have no time. I had such a good day today. I just have to touch on it. You will hear all about it on Wednesday because I will run for coffee time on Monday. I will run kind of a spooky on Halloween Day episode, doing a little more Halloween, doing a little bit of Lizzie Borden. I want to talk about German paper cutting, right? That craft of German paper cutting with Halloween patterns. There's a great book recently out on that subject. So we're going to sort of finish up our Halloween chapter before we move into the other holidays and the rest of the holiday season. But on Wednesday, I will cover what I did today because I had a bit of a road trip today. Honestly, I don't want to choke myself up, but it was one of the best days of my life. I went to pick up a couple of rugs by a rug maker in a different part of Connecticut. She's just over an hour away, an older lady. I bought two of her rugs, and I knew I would want to sit with her for a while. I sat with her for a few hours, and man, it was like one of the best days of my life, one of the best afternoons. She has done, I'm estimating, thinking about the albums we were going through, I would say minimum 500 rugs. She is 84 and she's been hooking since she was 19. And she learned to hook from her mother. Neither of them ever took a class. She's a true thrifty hooker, you know, getting all kinds of recycled materials, cutting them with scissors. She does not use a cutter. She uses, oh God, wait till you see it. Wait till you see it. You're going to flip your flipper. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable body of work. I was crying. I mean, it was so emotional because she was telling the stories of like the different rugs that she'd done over the years, and some were quite old, and some of the stories were from childhood, and some were from when she was like married, and you know, and children and grandchildren and friends, and she's heavily involved in the church. That story is coming up next Wednesday, so that'll be the first episode I do coming out of the Halloween season, and it's going to be like an out of the park episode. I promise. It's, oh God, I wish we could have all been there together. You would have been in tears too. It was so much. It was just like someone's life, like a memoir of someone's life done completely in hooked rugs. Unbelievable. Ryan, great to see you. Happy Friday from cold and rainy North Texas. Spent the day indoors dyeing yarn. Good for you. For a last minute witch project. Good for you. Hard seltzer and takeout tonight. What is it? What is the takeout? That sounds great. Melanie, cheers, my dears. Cloudy and cool in Mount Vernon, Washington, with your shilling spiced chai cider. Don't get me going. See, that's something that could go right through the holidays, right? You just add the word chai, you take out the trick or treat, and then you have all these other nice beverages that are so seasonal and aromatic, right? Ah, so good. All right, Barbara, great to see you tonight. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for noticing my planchette earrings. I had to buy two. I probably told you this. I had to buy two different pairs so I could have them a bit mismatching. So if anybody would like a pair of planchette earrings, these exact ones, I will send them to you, right? Just let me know that you want them because they're just sitting on the dresser, one of each. Not very useful to me, but maybe useful to you. Late in the season, but you could save them till next year, right? Because I seriously have two and I have nothing to do with them. And Chrissy, great to see you. Cheers, my dears. Happy Friday night. Priscilla, cheers, my dears. In Ohio, great to see you. Stephanie, great to see you in Arizona. Southern Soil, hello to you too. Great to see you. In Darlene in Kingsport, Tennessee. Great to see you. Happy Friday, everybody. Colleen, great to see you. Beech Nut Studio. Colleen is an amazing designer. Make sure you check out her work as well. She is amazing. I love the Magi thing that you're working on now. Joy, great to see you in Port Charlotte, Florida. Teresa, cheers, my dears. Oh, wow, there's a lot of buddies on tonight. Oh, Karen, what did you say about Atha? What a great story for. Well, you know what? It is going to be a great story for Atha or rug hooking. And I also have already decided I am all booked up right now. I'm like two projects out right now, but I have got to do her story because when I say 500 rugs, I think it's more like 1,000. I'm not kidding. She did either last year or the year before for her church community tote bags that were like a good size. They weren't small purses. These are like big tote bags. 40 of them for the different women in her community who she all knows in the church, and each one was special and two-sided with a different image on both sides. Plus, they were about this deep, like I would say maybe 5 inches deep, and there were two sides on this. So there was 4 images on each bag. She did 40 of them, and she kept photographs of all. And she is incredibly prolific. She has been, and she's very religious. So I think she feels like she's been like praising God through rug hooking for many years. Not all her work is religious, but the pieces that are were the most poignant. I mean, it is just unbelievable work. Lots of stained glass window. I mean, I'll show you all of it. I mean, I'll show you most of it because there's a lot. But it is so, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time with her going back and forth. And I'm going to be translating some of her images to patterns. So they are great beginner patterns because she works in a very folky primitive style, cutting her pieces, right? There's no number threes in here. She does not hook with yarn. She does all primitive stuff. So I'll be translating some of her designs because she designs all of her rugs, all of them. She designs directly onto her backing with different color Sharpies. She sits there at a wooden frame with nails stuck in it, right? Just nails the burlap. She loves burlap. She doesn't want anything else. Right onto her frame. She takes out her colored Sharpies and she just draws images on and hooks as she goes. Never transfers patterns. It's just, I mean, it's like you open the back of a wardrobe and this woman, Joanne, is sitting back there working in the style of like the 1860s. And it is, I mean, her work is super contemporary too. The most recent piece she did was like a cityscape, like a city corner with some shop windows, a little bit of graffiti on the wall. She had read that article in Rug Cooking Magazine too. And one of the windows was lit up and it had a lamp in it. And do you know what the lamp was? Think about it. You're going to get it. It's the leg from Christmas Story. So she's very contemporary in the way that she designs too. So much fun. Dave, I missed you. I was wondering where you were. Great to see you. That's not a guilt trip. That wasn't passive aggressive. I missed you. Sonia, great to see you in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Barbara, I took so many photos that I had to say to her at a certain point. I mean, I was in the hundreds of photos and my phone was telling me like no more storage. I said to her, you know what? And this is when I started crying. I said, this is not like an article from, I mean, it is an article for a magazine, but this is a full blown book. And I do not have the time and it's not a good business decision. But I am looking at this woman and seeing her life on the walls around me. She fell recently, tripped on a rug. So her daughter came and pulled the rugs up that were in the traffic of, life. And now they're up on the walls and they're under furniture, but they're out of her way just in case. And I'm just looking at the walls going, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is your life. I have to stop my life or slow my life down I'm going to choke myself up again to pay tribute to your life because all of her stories were right in front of my eyes. It was unbelievable. It was something that other rug makers would appreciate. I don't know if everybody walking in would appreciate crazy color and all of that imagery, but rug makers certainly, artists of all kinds, I'm sure. Fernanda, great to see you in New Brunswick. Fern, I love the name Fern. That is one of my favorite names. All right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I love the Magi piece. You mentioned done by Kelly Smith. I'm so sorry, Colleen. Why am I confusing you? You are distinctly different. Colleen, Beechnut Studio, completely different. I don't know why I'm crossing wires with that. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. But I mention Beechnut Studios a lot because you're so good. I am so sorry. And it's not this. I mean, I just cracked it open right before the show, I promise. It will be that in 5 minutes, but not yet. Dave, is it your birthday? Birthday week celebrations, mine and friends too. If it's friends too, just roll it into a few weeks, right? That sounds amazing. Happy birthday. Should we ask? No, we won't ask. So I'm turning 51 soon. Can you believe that? I cannot believe that. 50 was okay. 51, I think I'm on the threshold of a breakdown. Somehow it's different. Let's get going. We have lots of subjects to cover today, and all of them are fantastic. So I'm going to be jumping like a little rabbit from place to place here because we've got a lot to cover. Suppose if we have anything left over, we could use it on Monday, but let's shoot for the stars here. And let's talk about a vintage Halloween. Let's talk about how people used to decorate back in the day. This is something that is just not happy birthday. Oh, that is so nice, matey. You're logging on from Scotland, I know. Um, let's talk about vintage Halloween. Does anybody remember the company called Dennison? D-E-N, I think it was two N's, D-E-N-N-I-S-O-N. I mean, they go way back, right? So nobody here remembers like their origins, but they did the most spectacular holiday, particularly Halloween decorations, crepe paper, costumes, everything. I mean, this was right at the dawn of Halloween when people began celebrating it. It won't be a huge holiday until the 1950s, but Dennison jumps on in the 1920s, and they are creating costumes made out of crepe paper, right? I mean, this is a crazy idea, but people wore them. Masks, all kinds of decorations for the house. Let's look at some of those. And we're not talking about, you remember, Barbara. I remember Dennison because more recently in the 70s and 80s, they made those small sticker books to remember for the different holidays. And you could get like Halloween, and they were semi-photographic, maybe 6 or 8 stickers on one page, quite small. Lots of turkeys for Thanksgiving. It was just very symbolic, very fun. The kind of thing a teacher would have on his or her desk. Sexist remark right off the bat, his or her desk, and put on your papers for around the different holidays. And we all enjoyed that back then. Nobody took exception to anything in those days. But let's look at the way people decorated back in the day because it is nostalgic and it is exciting. So let's just look. Some of these images are from this extremely rare book that was put out by Dennison, and it was called the Bogey Book, like the Bogeyman. Very rare, very expensive reprints, totally affordable on Amazon and eBay. But original books we're talking about in the hundreds. Linda Ann, good to see you. Happy Friday. So collectible because it's filled with imagery like this. You know, I mean, this is all crepe paper, so do not be deceived. This isn't maybe as lush as it looks. If you were there in person, you'd probably be thinking, what a lot of streamers. But I mean, in terms of illustration and the feel that it gives, it is so of its time, isn't it? The little punch bowl awaiting pages like this of decorations. Now, at this point in the 1920s, people would be looking at this and thinking, whoa, okay, inspiration. Pipe cleaners, crepe paper. You see the pumpkin body on the right. It's probably a real pumpkin, maybe skewered onto some kind of a base or maybe a wooden base. Lots of crepe paper added, a fabric hat. People would be either buying these or looking at these for inspiration. Dave said, I'm blushing. Thanks for the good wishes. 54, Studio 54. All year long. That sounds fantastic. That sounds, I'm going to catch you on your 54th year. I'll be 51, you'll be 54 when we finally meet. It's definitely going to be coming up. I had to put a bunch of these pages into the slideshow because I thought this is great inspiration. Some of these motifs we have gotten away from a little bit. The top left, I think, is a pumpkin face, although there was a lot of putting faces on like nuts and leaves back at this point as well. But I mean, look at these sweet ideas. You could use these ideas for rug design. Absolutely, you could. Lots of sweetness, lots of cuteness, very whimsical, very playful. The clown we see a lot at the beginning of the 20th century for every holiday. He just appears with different colored balloons. But he has kind of disappeared. Andrea, great to see you. You're working on your trick-or-treat tapestry. Oh, you've got to keep me updated on that. I'm sure it is super beautiful. And it was nice seeing you the other day. I've got some Van Gogh stuff for you, so don't let me forget. We got to meet in person, right, at the Providence Flea. I have a photo from that. None of us together, but entering. It was called the Witch's Ball. It was fantastic. So a few more pictures of, setting the stage kind of action is what we're doing here. I mean, I just feel like, I don't necessarily feel like I was born in the wrong time because I really do like toilets that flush and trick-or-treat beers that are infused with candy corn. But when I look at stuff like this, I do have that longing, don't you, for this time when people decorated for everything and over the top too. And how special for everybody at home, for all of the kids, for all of the neighbors who would come by. It was just a moment in time, wasn't it? Look at the bats on the paper chandelier. Again, this is Denizens, so this is all crepe paper. And if you've ever seen a Denizens catalog, either in person or on the internet, they often have samplers of the crepe paper colors, and it is like more than the paint colors in a hardware store. It is a remarkable amount of colors, every possible shade you can think about. But I'm setting the stage here, looking at these ideas, because you can always watch back on this later. If you want to work on a Halloween idea on Halloween or, the days leading up to, these are great images to pull from. These are very vintage images. They're very genetic, not quite, more generic than genetic. But, color-wise, motif-wise, there are some really good ideas here. I'm going to move into another idea that Denizens covers a lot with their illustrating, and that is the idea of bobbing for apples, right? So we are now only just putting people at this point, 1920s era of illustration, only starting to put people into costumes. So costumes have not taken off yet. Lisa, great to see you. Those Linda and those cats would be super fun in multiples too, right? There's no reason why you can't use you should use multiples. Multiples always make great designs. Really, really good design. And imagine if you did them in slightly, maybe all black, but with slightly different backgrounds or something like that. You could really get something going. I just love this illustration. It shows the fun of dressing up and celebrating the holiday quite early on, because you can see people are not really dressed in costume. They're dressed kind of silly. So it would be real typical. Think back to the movie Meet Me in St. Louis. Think back to how people would just put on their parents' clothing, men and women's clothing, and act really silly. Ryan says bobbing for apples isn't really around anymore. I wonder why. One of the more silly activities of childhood. Absolutely. I think hygiene-wise, especially right now, that's a real problem. But you're right. We have lost it over the years. And it's really sad. I put some images in of bobbing for apples over the year. Great party practice. This is Victorian era. These are adults bobbing for apples. And when you see adults bobbing for apples, this is more like romantic stuff. This is more of a matchmaking game. So this isn't really the kids' party. This is grown-ups just flirting and playing with the idea of you catch certain apples or whatever, it indicates certain fates. And it does cross over to the kids' party, right? We're seeing people drinking out of like galvanized buckets and old oaken buckets and things like this. Really charming motifs. This is a postcard. This would be copyright free. If it appeals, I would just cut everything out of the background. Pumpkin black cat, kids bobbing for apples, fantastic. And they are not dressed in Halloween costumes. They're dressed for a party because that's what they're doing, right? They're not dressing up yet. Oops, sorry, same one. And then like photographs, there's tons of these on the internet, and they evoke this time in such a way. The joy, the silliness, the fun, the high spirits, right? All these boys bobbing for apples. It's just, yeah, it's something that I don't know why it keeps repeating what I'm doing here. Grown-ups, right? This is more like the Dutch tradition of hanging things from strings. So instead of going into the water and ruining your makeup or your look, you're up in the air. And this is a bit more hygienic, but I can guarantee you people were biting at the same apples. It's just the way it is. In the Netherlands, we did this with donuts, but in the US, apples. So super fun. And you can see this guy is obviously the life of the party. The women are very interested in him. It is to be determined, I guess, how proficient he is at catching the apple. And maybe that is some kind of prowess, but something like this. Oops. You know how stupid I am? You know what that one was labeled? Do not show. Because that was going to be one of our game ones where I described it to you. And I was going to have you draw it. We have a couple more of those in the night. That was a spoiler. So I will just show that one. What an idiot, huh? The name of the slide was Do Not Show. And I was thinking, gosh, that's a funny name for a slide, isn't it? I wonder why. But it was because I wasn't supposed to show it. Let me come back to that one. We might as well look at it now that I've spoiled it. I'm hoping that tonight you have a pad and a pen near you because I was going to describe some Halloween images, and I was hoping that we could play this game where you do not see the image and I do see the image, and I describe it to you and you draw it. In any case, I spoiled this one. I'm super sorry, but you can see how this would be a great design for you to copy because it's just 2 rows of pumpkins, very simple silhouettes of pumpkins, 1 girl, and 2 strings of apples. Now you see on the top right how there is kind of like a theatrical valance, like the suggestion of, the sweep of. That would make a great design. You could even make that larger. In the background, there's kind of a mysterious smoky cloud. That could be a great design device to infuse color right where she's biting. I'd actually lift that cloud so it included her face because I think it's confusing coming in at apple level. I think if it met her at her hair level, that would make a bit more sense and give you the opportunity for a great color change. One of the things I would maybe take out in this picture is the binding on her wrists. Different connotation, right? That's over the years, different connotation. That's a bit bondagey. Up to you. I mean, obviously it's meant to be benign, but that catches my eye quite a bit in 2023. And the fact that they put Halloween in parentheses, it's kind of like it's new. It's a new idea at this point. So it's kind of like they're giving you this idea, hey, Halloween, why don't you do stuff with biting apples and seeing if you can catch them? And people are like, oh, okay, I now associate that with Halloween. I do too, Ryan, and it's copyright free, so it is all yours. You could really bling it out. There seems to be a bit of a form problem. I mean, I like the way her body looks, but it seems like to be a weird angle. Like she's either very, very thin. She's like a Gibson girl, isn't she, with the hair? But I think I'd give her a little bit more body and lower the waistline a little bit. It seems like the waistline should be down where her wrists are. Just my opinion. But this is a great image to play with, and I think it could be a lot of fun to work with. So think about that. That is a copyright-free image that you could play with. If you're like me and you don't like to work on holiday projects long before the holiday, we're not long before Halloween now, but you know what I mean. On Halloween, I can guarantee you I will be working on a Halloween project, not a Christmas project. I just don't work that way. And if you feel the same way, maybe pull some images from tonight and get going on some designs before it is too late. Let me take a little break, and then I'm going to do some commentary on the idea of bobbing for apples, and maybe we can find out why it is not such a custom anymore, sadly. You know, when I think about it, I'm not even sure my kids have bobbed for apples yet. We're going to have to change that. Maybe not with the neighbors, with everything the way it is, but within the family. So the history of bobbing for apples, I got this from the Martha Stewart website. She's one of my idols, of course. Bobbing for apples has been an autumn tradition for hundreds of years. Despite its presence at Halloween parties and festivals today, its origins are more rooted in love and romance than in trick or treats, right? So, as suggested with the Victorian image, it is more of a romantic game historically than it is a spooky Halloween game. It began as a British courting ritual, popular among the young ladies and their potential beaux. There were several variations of this game. In one set of rules, each apple was assigned to a potential mate. The bobber would then attempt to bite into the apple named for the young man that she desired. If it only took her one try, they were destined for romance. If she succeeded with the second attempt, he would court her, but their love would fade. If it took 3 tries, their relationship was doomed. Man, there's a lot of pressure on this game, isn't there? If you were this girl, not only would you have to initiate the biting of the apple and thus give yourself away, give up the game with showing who you were interested in, but I would like be breaking my teeth on that first bite, making sure that I got it, because the choice number 2 and choice number 3 are not very promising. Another approach to the game was a race to be the first to bite an apple. The first to emerge successful would be the first to marry. That's a lot less pressure, isn't it? I mean, there's still a lot of pressure there, but not so specific. A related superstition suggested that if a girl put an apple she'd bitten underneath her pillow, she would see her future soulmate in her dreams that night. Eventually, the game declined in popularity, and by the 1800s, it was common only in Ireland and certain rural areas of England. At the end of the century, though, Americans exploring their immigrant roots decided to bring back this Celtic fall tradition as a game for both children and adults at Halloween parties. Today, some parents may keep their kids away from the tub of apples for fear of spreading germs, but bobbing for apples is comparatively safe as a tradition when compared to another apple centric Halloween pastime called Snap Apple. In the game of Snap Apple, oh boy, an apple was smeared on one end of the stick with a lit candle fixed at the other end. The stick was spun around, and the participant's goal was to take a bite of the apple, avoiding a full face of hot candle wax. Definitely not a game to play with kids. I mean, I cut and paste the stuff and then I read it with you live, so it's exciting for me too. That is insane. That is insane. That is irresponsible. That is criminal. Okay, craziness. So let's come back to our bobbing for apples. Let me see if I have any more images. I think that was probably it. I'm glad that you liked this one, though. I really, really like this one. I think we're going to move to our next subject, which is Halloween candy. Now, you have got to shout out, even if you are giving away your age. You've got to shout out if you remember any of these illustrations. Candy is it for the kids, right? Regardless of everything else, costumes are fun, the night air is fun, the scares are fun, but candy is really it, isn't it? And I mean, I remember, oh, this was my image for bobbing for apples. I put it in the wrong place. This is available at Ribbon Candy Hooking. This is an image that I started with punch needle. I'm only partway done. I have older videos on it. You can see I started it in 2020. Had to abandon it because I got too busy. I really want to return to it. So this is a drawing that I did that's available for punch or rug hooking, and I think it's a great design for both. Lots of fun. So candy, right? When I talk to my kids about their favorite parts of both Halloween and Christmas, I with each passing year, hope that they will say being together, but they always say candy. And it's just the way it is. Carol says, bobbed for apples back in the Girl Scouts. Sticking my head under water to bite a slippery, hard apple was very unpleasant. It's also incredibly hard, isn't it? I mean, it's like catching a fish with your hands. It's just not going to happen. It rolls up in your face. It's remarkably buoyant, an apple, isn't it? I mean, it is a lot of fun to revisit, but if you have nice makeup on or your clothing is decent, you're like in company and public, it's a big mess maker. It's a big mess maker of a game. I remember some of these ads. I mean, you know, when you're a kid and you are looking at your mom's magazines or something, and you see a page like this, like you literally go out of your mind. Like you lose brain cells, you like some semi-permanent brain damage. It's just you take it in like it's the Christmas catalog, and you're just studying each part of the ad, making sure you know that you understand what's available there on the shelves, and then you pin your hopes on specific candies. And oh God, it's so much fun, isn't it? Linda Ann says, I love bobbing for apples, but I just push it to the bottom and I don't care if I get wet. That's a good strategy. Or push it to the side, but then it can still bounce up in your face, right? How funny. Everybody has the same memories. These are all unifying things, aren't they? Even from country to country, I think we have very similar memories of childhood, right? It's one of these leveling things. This Curtis ad, trick or treats, all the different bars and gum, Baby Ruth, a lot of these things, Butterfinger, have changed ownership over the years. So candy was a big deal for me. I was super interested in looking at old images for Halloween candy. And so I did a little bit of research on this subject too. Let me reset myself too while you're all having nice snackies and drinks, right? It is so cotton candy, candy corn. For most American kids, I think this is from Wikipedia, it wouldn't be Halloween without trick or treating for candy. However, that wasn't always the case. When the custom of trick or treating started in the 1930s and early 1940s, children were given everything from homemade cookies and pieces of cake to fruit, nuts, coins, and even toys. In the 1950s, candy manufacturers began to get in on the act and promote their products for Halloween. And as trick or treating became more popular, candy was increasingly regarded as an affordable and convenient offering. In comparison to a toy, it would be, right? Melanie says, we did it in first or second grade at the school harvest festival. I did one round and that was it. No way did I want those awful boys to push my head under the water. That really is dangerous, isn't it? Because you not just the like drowning Agatha Christie part of it, but the idea, when water goes up your nose, it happened to me in the shower this morning and it hurts. It really hurts, You don't want that sort of memory attached to a happy holiday party. Funny that you say that because the kids right now are at a harvest festival at their school. They were able to walk there with their dad, and there's like all kinds of comings and goings happening in the gymnasium. So I'm wondering what I'm going to hear about when I get back. It'll probably be a lot of fun. I can live without visiting with the other mothers. So I'm very happy to be here instead. It wasn't until the 1970s, though, that wrapped factory made candy was viewed as the only acceptable thing to hand out to all of the little ghosts and goblins that showed up on people's doorsteps. Key reason for this was safety, as parents feared that a real life boogeyman might tamper with goodies when they weren't store bought and sealed. So I'm just going to add, and I'm not going to take a real dark turn here, but to remember all that talk through the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s about razor blades and things in chocolate. I read in this history magazine, this one here that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, that there are no cases of that having ever been recorded. That is like an urban legend. People did do dangerous things on Halloween, but that was not one of them. All of those years that people said there was all of these razor blades, there wasn't. And that is a fact. But there is a section it's a section in the other book, the Halloween book. This book, remember I was showing you this one also a couple of weeks ago, maybe this week. There's a section on Halloween murders because there is a crazy amount of murders in modern days that have taken place on Halloween. Not quite copycat, just I guess inspiration. So that's true, but not so much the tampering with the candy. That is not. There have been incidents of it in more modern times, but during those years, like the 80s years that I was growing up, when people talked about that and parents checked apples and cut everything up, there were no known cases at that time. Cases came later because people got this great idea, right? That's just the way it goes. Here comes some candy trivia. See if you can answer any of these questions. I've just got a few trivia questions for you. First one is Twizzlers. Twizzlers is a brand of candy by what manufacturer? Do you know? Or can you take a guess? Because there are some big monster umbrellas that own many candy. Like you think these are all independent candy companies and you've heard all the names? No, they're owned by one or two people. So take a guess at who you think Twizzlers is owned by. Linda Ann says, I love the Halloween molasses toffee candies. I do too. And I used to love when I was growing up, I don't even know if they have them anymore, those squirrel, what would they call, squirrel nut zippers or something like that. They were like molasses, like tiny wet little kind of cake things, like a rectangle. They were so good. I always liked that kind of spicy, savory thing. No, Kirsten, that's a good guess. It's not Nabisco. It's one of the bigger ones. Melanie says, I worked in the hospital in the Navy, and on Halloween for a couple of days after, we used to x-ray candy for free. That is so funny. What an amazing piece of trivia that is. Oh, Dave said, in Canada, we had molasses kisses. The worst tasting and hard on the teeth. Cheap, yeah. Yeah, some of those early ones, the Mary Janes and the squirrel ones, those are really cheap. However, nice neighbors made caramel apples, like dipped caramel apples on a stick. Oh, that is really nice. It is Hershey, Colleen. Good job. Colleen, I'm so sorry about that. What a dumb I am. It is Hershey. Here comes your next question. What kind of candy is manufactured, made, by combining and adding heated milk? These are the ingredients: heated milk, butter, and sugar. It's going to be something simple, isn't it? It's a category of candy. Ingredients: heated milk, butter, and sugar. That's it. And then flavor, of course. See if you can figure that one out, because again, it's going to be a category. Oh, Dave, that's so cute. I'm going to hold on that one. See if you can answer that one before I give it away. Here comes another question. See if it's going to be a 2-for-1 special here. Which flavor is used to manufacture? Now get ready, get your head ready for this because it's a weird question. Circus peanuts. So you'd think they'd be peanuts, right? But can you picture circus peanuts, having them at the theater or at the circus? They're not peanuts. So what are they made out of? What's the flavor and what are they made out of? Let's see. Caramel, that's very close, but not caramel. You are quite close. I mean, maybe also caramel, but that's not the answer anyway. Tablet, caramel. Dave, that would be caramel. Taffy, nope. Lots of caramels. The answer is fudge. I hope that that's correct. It came off a big website, a bunch of trivia games, but the answer is fudge. I don't know how to make caramel. It could be that they're similar, different temperatures, but at least the answer here was fudge. Linda Ann, marshmallow is it for the circus peanut, but so they are marshmallow. So it's a big bag of candies that are marshmallow shaped peanuts, very realistic with dimples and everything, and they're flavored like banana. Joy, you were close. They're flavored like banana. I mean, that's crazy. They're circus peanuts, but they're banana marshmallow. It's always been that way, right? Funny. They do taste like styrofoam. They are not the best. When I think about yes, Melanie, when I think about calories, I don't think about circus peanuts as being a good use of calories. Here comes another one. Licorice candy is often flavored with which spice? This is one that you might know. I knew this one because I lived in the Netherlands so long. This is a flavor that they use for absolutely everything, but salty in the Netherlands. I was going to say they're like banana. You would be right, Linda Ann. They are. So tell me what is flavored when you're making licorice. What spice is that? And here comes another one. In M&M candies, what did the blue replace in 1995? So in 1995, they bumped one color and they started doing the blues, and they have done ever since. Do you remember what color it was before 1995 when they're, yes, anise. It is. Everybody got it. Great job. Great job. See, I was almost going to say anisette. Is anisette the same as anise? Is anisette just like the booze version of anise? I can never make a distinction between those words. Ryan says black licorice is my favorite. Everyone in America hates it. I love black licorice, but I love the brown licorice that's like 99% salt. The truly Dutch licorice is my favorite. Man, you need some glasses of water after that. You have to keep water by the bucket, by the bedside, if you're going to be popping in salty licorice, because it's just a crazy flavor. What color was bumped in 1995? And here comes the next question. According to its advert, which candy bar is fluffy, not stuffy? This is an older slogan. Fluffy, not stuffy. What candy bar? See if you can remember. Linda Ann, you're right. It's tan, not brown, but tan. There are still brown ones, but there used to be a light brown. Can you picture that? I mean, it's been, yes, good job, Lisa. It's been a while. But yeah, they used to have the light browns as well as the dark browns because I guess they looked like chocolate, right? Which would make a lot of sense. But tan is not such an appealing color or such a dynamic color as bright blue. So good one with that. Which candy bar is advertised or was advertised as being fluffy? Yes, Lisa. Lisa, you're good. It is Three Musketeers. Great job. Which candy bar is described as being packed with peanuts? I bet you're going to get that one too. Um, and which candy bar, this is our last candy trivia question, which candy bar is described as being packed with peanuts? And which candy bar is named after the family's horse? Like they came up with the name because it was the horse's name. Linda Ann says, we have a Dutch bakery right by our house, and they have a huge candy selection that sell the salty black licorice. Have you tried it? And do you like it? Because I always was told it was an acquired taste, but I am like a huge saltaholic because I have low blood pressure. Can you believe that? And Snickers, you're right. Nope, Lisa, streak broken. Dave, you got it. It's Snickers. And you know what? The answer is Snickers for both. Snickers is packed with peanuts, and Snickers was named after the family horse. So, ooh, wunderbar. That was a good guess. But no, Snickers for both. That was kind of, I was tricking you by having the same answers for both. Great, great fun playing trivia, isn't it? We have to do a little trivia more often, don't we? I want to move on to our next subject because it is Halloween episode. Oh, do you hate it? We even have black licorice ice cream here near my mom's house at this gourmet ice cream place. I even love that. It is so good. I'm going to move on to a subject that came up when we were looking at, this is one of the things I left off with a couple weeks ago when we were looking at the History Channel's Witches magazine. We started to talk about the idea of the witch and women over history who had become synonymous with different varieties of fortune telling and the occult, right? So crossing over to sort of the idea of being a gypsy or a fortune teller, that kind of thing, very specific, right? Probably the most famous woman psychic of all time, uh, household name in Europe, less known here in the U.S. Marie Anne Lenormand. That's a hard name. It's a French name. Her life was between 1768 and 1843. She was famously the psychic for Napoleon Bonaparte and his wife Josephine. So I want to do a little bit on her because this is an extraordinary life, right? The life of a psychic. Now, however you feel about this subject, right? I'm not being insulting. I am not being dismissive. I have gotten hugely into the subject of psychic phenomenon, tarot, everything this month in doing research for these shows. It was like one of my not interested buttons, and now it's one of my hugely interested buttons. Having said that, I do have to make the disclaimer that Marie Anne Lenormand was using a deck of altered cards, right? And that is a known fact now. So I'm not saying that for me, cards are interesting to an extent. We will cover cards in a minute, but her cards were an altered deck. So just putting that out there. Um, this was like a job for her in retrospect. These are things that we know. We know that early on in her career, she used astrology and palmistry, as well as a deck designed by an occultist called Jean-Baptiste Alliette. The Alliette deck, as it's now known, was the first set of cards created specifically for divination, so to divine, right, to tell fortunes. It is hotly debated, and I mean hotly, going down these rabbit holes, whether other decks were previously in existence in Europe or not. But as far as can be determined, this was the deck that she used is the first deck that was meant specifically for telling fortunes. So let's look at this subject a little bit. This design wise is a treasure trove, right? However you feel about it, you will not be able to refute the fact that there is, oh, wait a minute, I did it again. I had a design for candy that I have also started and abandoned in 2020. This is a design that Jocelyn drew that I touched up the pumpkin. And I wrote a verse with it that says butterscotch, bubblegum, taffy and tricks, licorice lollipops, and pixie sticks. This is another design that's available on Ribbon Candy Hooking. I absolutely love this one. I cannot wait to get back to it, but it's not going to be in the next couple of weeks. Let's look at Marie Anne. Oh, wait a minute. What's going on? That was more candy. Okay, hang on. Struggles. Here she is. So this is an illustration of her at work. You know, the practice of cartomancy, which is using cards, like palmistry. Um, like a cartomancer or mancer is a person who reads cards, right? This becomes an occupation in the 18th century. This was not fashionable until Marie Anne started doing this and the Napoleons became interested. Um, it's, she started to appeal to that top tier of social class in France, and she became like a celebrity figure. So that is an image of her, an advertising image. This is a painting of her by the um, painter Don Hauser. And in this, this shows her as an old kind of crone character, Napoleon in the background in his very typical pose with his hand under his sash, and Josephine kind of swooning. It's a very dramatic image. But apparently there were lots of days like this because Josephine consulted her constantly. At an early age, Paris became Marianne's home. And let me come back to you because I did a bit of history here. Here we find her in her 17th year, already embarked in as a professional fortune teller and applying herself with ardor to the study of astronomy and algebra, the knowledge of which she believed was indispensable to the perfection she aimed at in the divining arts. So interesting, because she really is crossing over the sciences. Of course, science and art are very aligned with lots of parallels and crossovers. But she saw this quite early in the game. She rose rapidly into note. The persons who came, led perhaps more by curiosity than by credulity, to test her prophetic powers, were confounded by the acquaintance she displaced. This is narrative of the day, right? This is a quote from Wikipedia. That's why the language is difficult. By the acquaintance she displayed with the most secret details of their past history, and learned to place a reluctant confidence at variance with all their habits of thought in her predictions of the future. Another way, it was uncanny. They thought, how does she know that? This is uncanny. This is it, isn't it? That's the crux of it. There are many tales surrounding Mademoiselle Lenormand which are difficult to prove. For instance, was she intimately involved in the plot to free Marie Antoinette, who shortly afterward was beheaded at the guillotine? There's lots of history here, and there are biographies too, which I have not gotten to yet, but would be extremely juicy, I think. Detractors say that Lenormand embellished aspects of her life story, but she was never accused of being an outright fake. Now, that is extraordinary. That is extraordinary. At a time when people would still be looking for witches and thinking about the presence of the devil, she was never accused of being a fake. She was powerful and charismatic enough to worry Napoleon, who at best frowned upon her relationship with his wife, and at worst had a feeling that she was a spy. Interesting, isn't it? So this is just an interesting chapter in the sort of annals of history, but also crossing over to Halloween, the idea of the fortune teller, right? This is the idea of the fortune teller taken to an absolute extreme. This is an etching, right, that people would have framed of Lenormand, Marianne. So she's there on the ground, again, looking a bit like a crone. Most etchings that we see of her were like the first one I showed you. Let me show you again, where she looks beautiful and young. Contemporary sources said that she was quite, I'm going to come back to that, that she always looked old and she was very heavy. So very different than the way she's portrayed as a fashion plate. That's something that the press did as she rose in popularity. Apparently she wasn't in real life as young or attractive as she seemed to be, according to the press. But lots of advertising might here. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger for you. This is an advertisement for her card deck. So her card deck was not available until after her death. So she was not aware that this would be created and marketed, right? Somebody else is making money off her card deck. But this is an advertisement, very spooky advertisement with her for the card deck that becomes available and sold in widespread numbers after her death. And the cards looked like this. I mean, they were quite beautiful, like watercolor type cards. This was one of the deck, and these were the others. Remember, and I don't know the answer to this, but remember that her deck was altered. It doesn't mean that the deck that they later sold, like in her name, was altered. It could be that all of the cards are there just like they're supposed to be. I don't know why they would sell an altered set to people who would be buying it after her death. She used the altar set in fortune telling. So interesting. Just an interesting story. She was such a celebrity in France and in Europe in general. They started to sell a lot of things with her name on it. So this is what a pack of cards would have looked like. And at this point, they're selling, these are tarot cards, fortune telling cards, and yeah, and they're calling them mystic cards of fortune. So they really are. These are printed in New York, but they really are experimenting with the idea of her as sort of a witch with the dunce cap. But again, these are like early 20th century. I'm sorry, no, these would have been late 19th century. They would have been late 19th century. So we are seeing images that become synonymous with Halloween, like the wise old owl, like the cat. For whatever reason, she is French and she's from Paris, but they are showing us Big Ben in the distance. Who knows? But European, I guess, in general. But just interesting, crossing over to the look of kind of a clown, a witch type clown with Halloween colors, but not a Halloween costume yet. So I have to say, with all of this research that I was doing for tonight, I could not help but go down a crazy and deep rabbit hole chasing after the idea of the tarot card. I even signed up, I haven't had a chance to take it yet, for an online class in learning to design tarot cards or playing cards in general, because I love the images on the cards and they are so diverse and different. So I want to share with you what I found out that I found really interesting relating to tarot cards. Let me just wet my whistle again. I do too, Lisa. I love the artistry. So that's part of what I like. I'm going to share this with you more. There is every variety of tarot card out there. Tarot card decks in general are how many? It's like 78 cards or 78 cards. So when you buy a tarot deck, if you like the art, what is it going to cost, like on Amazon? $17-20. You're going to get 78 images by the artist. They're not repeats like a regular deck of playing cards. 78 images. That's a lot to play with and to be inspired by. I have this yarn deck. I'll show you that. When I went last weekend, when I saw Andrea, right, at the, what was it, Witch's Ball. Hold on one second. Wait a minute. I just want to show you. It's not going to work. I'll show you later. But when I went with the kids, that night we went to Providence last weekend for the big pumpkin event, it was called the Witch's Ball, and it was a Halloween-themed flea market in Providence. A lot of people had tarot decks on the table. And I was so inspired by the art that I was seeing. I got a whole bunch of them because they're not expensive. And like I say, 78 cards to then look at. I got all Halloween themed ones to look at for tonight to see if they inspire me. Jack-o'-lantern tarot, right? And I loved the art. I mean, come on, this is like so cool. It's not coming into focus. There we go. But when I looked at the box, I'm thinking, obviously I'm going to like, I like the art. That goes without being said. I got the Seasons of the Witch, which I thought was extraordinarily pretty, moody, very sort of Edgar Allan Poe feel to it. These are all readily available. The Halloween Tarot comes with a book too, but I think this is my favorite. Tons of Halloween images that are so fun, giving me great Halloween inspiration, but also great ideas for designing. This is probably my least favorite one that I got, just in terms of design for me, the Trick or Treat Tarot. It is pretty, but I didn't realize quite how modern it is. There's like an Elvis. It's fine, but it was a bit less spooky than I thought. And I was looking at them in bed with Jocelyn. Some of them were a bit over the top. None of these are all charming, but some of them were a bit over the top. But I'm still going to keep it because I haven't had a chance to look at the book and everything yet. So interesting. So I wanted to, let me just read you something that I read that I thought I did not know this, because I think of tarot cards as being a very distinctly kind of Wiccan thing, and I go to Salem, Massachusetts a lot, and that's not the part of the town that appeals to me the most historically. Might be different now that I have like learned a little bit more and I have different feelings about it. I'm more interested. But this is what I read in bed And I loved this. It says, "What is the tarot?" And I'm reading from the Yarn Tarot. Most of them come with little books to help you navigate. What is the tarot? While the history of the tarot is long and somewhat mysterious, it is believed to have originated in 15th century Italy as a simple card game. Throughout the years, layers of religious, mystical, and astrological symbolism and meanings were added to create the cards that we know today. The tarot is comprised of 78 cards divided into the major and minor arcana. While there are countless tarot decks with different themes and artwork, each has the same types of cards that represent the same things. When using a tarot deck, it is more important that you connect with a particular deck and the art than which deck you use. Some believe the tarot taps into a spiritual or supernatural world to provide a means of enlightenment or even divination, fortune telling. Others see the tarot simply as a means of self exploration through contemplation prompted by the symbolism and interpretation of the cards. Regardless of how you view the tarot, you should come away feeling uplifted. I loved that it said that because I was thinking all of these books tell you what the Five of Cups, whatever, what that card means. And when you know what that card means, then you look at the cards, and whatever card you turn over, what this writer is saying, that's an opportunity to think on that subject. Whether you think of it as fortune telling or not is beside the point. It gives you an opportunity to think, to be introspective, to meditate. It's almost like you're a writer and you're given a prompt and you think for that day. I turned over the card The Hanged Man today. I'm going to tell you about that one because it's not what it sounds like at all. And I'm going to spend the rest of the day thinking about that thought. And it's going to hone in me my my thoughts because I'm thinking on this one point. It is a great start, for mindfulness and thoughtfulness if you are into that stuff. So not at all what I thought. I was blown away by this description. Hey Susie, great to see you. The illustrations are so fun, Linda N. I draw a tarot card every day. Stop it, Ryan. It gives me food for thought. I use the pulp tarot card. I would love to see some of your drawings if you ever want to share them. I would love to see them. I just love this idea. So I was looking at I'm going to show you some cards for design purposes, and that's going to be super fun. And we're going to play a game. I'm not going to screw it up. But for example, I was looking at what some of these cards meant. So for example, the Fool is in every deck. And it represents beginnings, innocence, and risk. So maybe Fool is a strong word, but beginnings, innocence, and risk. The Fool is about to begin an exciting adventure. Whatever troubles or rewards may come, will come. The Fool cannot be concerned with such things. While some may consider this naivete, others will see this as moving forward in faith. So a little bit on each kind of character. And I just found this so interesting, something to think about, right? Facets of personality. The Lovers. While the Lovers often symbolize decisions, love, relationships, and unity, while the Lovers often symbolize a romantic partnership, they are also associated with the need to make decisions that will affect oneself and or others. In all aspects, they emphasize the need to understand and pursue your true desires. So not really to do with romantic love at all. I like this one, the Hermit, because you would think of the Hermit card as being like, some weird person living in a cave, all antisocial. The Hermit is about meditation, self-exploration, and wisdom. The Hermit teaches us that it is okay to go against the conventional. Make time for yourself and participate in deep, meaningful reflection. Explore and shape your own morals and beliefs, and then be sure to share your wisdom with others. So, unexpected. And I have to read you the Hanged Man because this one was really surprising. I mean, you would think if you pulled the Hanged Man that wouldn't be good, right? It's good. He represents enlightenment, perspective, and waiting. The Hanged Man is often misunderstood. He's not about dying or danger. Rather, he has found himself in a situation where he can take a moment to reflect upon his life and others and other matters in a new perspective. So it's more about limbo than it is about being in a bad predicament. And the death card, right, which you see in movies and stuff and you think that's got to be bad, is change, endings, and new beginnings. Death is another one that's often misunderstood. It does not forewarn of the passing of life. Instead, it signals a change. Things come to a close so other things may begin. And oftentimes, these changes are necessary for personal growth and happiness. Like Sound of Music, when a door closes, a window opens, or a window, whatever it is, that kind of thing. So I really went down the rabbit hole here. I want to show you some of the things that, oh, you draw from the deck. You don't draw, I see what you mean. That's, if you pull a card and then you look up or you already know because you're experienced what that card means, and you have that in your head for the whole day, I see that as being very useful, right? Very thoughtful. Linda Ann says, I have a favorite deck that is called the Gill deck. My maiden name is Gill, and I bought it about 20 years ago, and the illustrations really speak to me. I think it is, that's the thing, isn't it? That whether the illustrations speak to you or not, so many of the illustrations have been speaking to me. Let me show you some of the different decks that are out there. Hang on, I'm searching for where we left off. Okay, here we go. So there are some crazy ones. Welcome to the Gummy Bear Tarot deck. So, I mean, this is so funny and simple, but it's also like I took lots of pictures off Amazon. I mean, look at these cards. In terms of design, you've got the bare bones for some amazing designs here, but these are the major arcana and minor cards. And they're just done using gummy bears as the main character. It sounds crazy, but these designs are fantastic. I mean, look at this. The Fool, the Emperor, the Lovers, the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune. There's Death in the form of a gummy bear. Temperance, that's one I really like. The Nine of Pentacles. There's all kinds of amazing stuff. And the gummy bear deck has even been translated to other languages like German. Der Turm translates as the tower in German. I shouldn't have done that voice. Maybe that was insensitive. But I mean, it's a very dramatic card, isn't it? Them falling off of the tower. You know what else you can do with a tarot deck? Gummy bear, like not gummy bear, garbage pail kids, right? So they're like the Cabbage Patch Kids. Do you remember this nonsense? Like in the 90s, I think, the garbage pail kids. There's a deck of garbage pail tarot kids. I mean, they're disgusting. But if this is funny and this speaks to you, then hey, right? There's all kinds of things happening here. But you have to admit, whether it is your taste or not, the art is fantastic. This is like, okay, that's disgusting. There's all kinds of candles coming out of her nose. But the art is beautiful. Isn't it? I mean, look at these clouds in the sky. I mean, it really, there's something. There's something here for sure. And Woodland Wardens, right? This one I found on Amazon. This is one I'm going to have to get. I just think this art is so beautiful. Taking you to different animals that serve as wardens and guardians. These are some of the cards in the deck, the moth and eucalyptus, representing an ending. You can see how this would be a thoughtful way to start your day. I think Ryan is really onto something. The cat in the lavender represents independence. Oh, this is a pretty, did I miss one? Wait a minute. No, I thought there was one more. This is a real pretty deck too. I don't have this one, the Intuition Oracle. I just thought the art was really kind of muka here, very mystical. I mean, look at the rainbow. I mean, it's beautiful, isn't it? These are some of the cards in that particular deck. But you see what I mean? The art is really moving. You love the woodland deck. I do too. It was really realistic. See, this is a different version of, I showed you my Seasons of the Witch. There's lots of different Seasons of the Witch, and they are a bit cartoony. This one has cards like cranberries. So they're replacing the major and minor arcana names with different things that represent like the same idea. The herbal astrology, if you are into herbals and plants, I mean, this would be super appealing. So the point is the guardian of the night. I mean, these are beautiful. And they all have a little book or something that comes with them. This is one I had to order, the Cute Ghost Tarot, because it's a Halloweeny one. And I thought, oh, come on, this is so cute. This is so cute. But anything that you are interested in, I'm telling you, it's there. Do you like roses? There's a whole deck of tarot roses, and there's also information about each card. 78 cards to look at relating to a subject that you like. I had to order this one too, Spooky Tarot. Lisa says animals are beautiful. I bought a horror deck. Oh, wait a minute, I see a bug. Wait a minute. Not a moth, it's okay. I bought a horror deck for Halloween this year. Ooh, is it over the top scary, Lisa? Karen says the hooker was one of the cord. That's right. I remember the hooker was like a tarot. You did your gypsy design, your fortune teller design with the Waldoboro um, crystal as like a tarot card, and that was amazing. The hooker was one of the corners. So cute, right, Lisa? This is really beautiful too. Kind of an Asian feel to it. Tarot of the Divine, a deck and guidebook. Right, so it's inspired by deities, folklore, and fairy tales from around the world. I mean, for what these cost, you get so much art. Hey, do you like the Golden Girls? There's a Golden Girls tarot deck. I thought that was so funny. Oh, so the deck that I was showing you, right? I'm working towards something here. The yarn deck. I got this one because I thought for people who like yarn and fiber art, this is a good one. And it is a good one. There's some really beautiful art. This is a beautiful deck. I wanted to show you some of the cards in this one because it crosses over so well to what we do. So whether you like the idea of tarot cards or not, what we're talking about is design. And the idea that using a playing card, you could really, sky's the limit, right? Really go out there on a limb and think about designing in terms of within the framework of a card, right? So it doesn't mean that you're buying into it. You're, oh, I don't believe in those cards. I don't like that stuff. It's just a question of design. There are some extraordinary designs here. Cass says, I know the folk tale of the girl with the moon. I bet that is what it represents. I don't know that one. Oh, Cass, it's a beautiful card. It's probably a beautiful story. The yarn deck, I mean, I had to go through it this morning, so I was doing some photographs for you. It's just, it's an extraordinary deck. So they equate everything to yarn and spindles. So the 4 cups, the cups turn into spindles, like yarn spindles. So if you do like sheep, fiber, spinning, things like this, you would love this deck. The 8 of swords, instead of being swords, they are knitting needles. So charming, right? And the wands, instead of being wands, they are crochet hooks. Look at this design. I mean, look at this design with the different hands coming in, and all of them are holding. This could easily be done with rug hooking too, couldn't it? Each of them are holding a tool, and the tool is creating kind of a spider web effect, and it's just an amazing design. It's a multiples design, multiple wands, multiple hands. It is a beautiful design. 5 of cups, again, we see those spindles coming down like tops. I could see this as being kind of a Christmas design too. It would work really well as a Christmas design. Slightly different with ornaments, right? Temperance, right? This is one of the major arcana cards. We're seeing the temperance, the angel figure, but holding spindles. I just thought these were amazing. Okay, I thought I was going to, I have a secret one for you, but it's not yet. I loved the 10 of cups with the different spindles and the inclusion of the rainbow. You know, it is because I got it on sale. It's super on sale. It's like a massive sale. So if you like the yarn tarot, check that out because it is a really low price right now. And those are moving target prices, right? It's not necessarily going to stay. This is the cat tarot for Kirsten and other cat lovers out there. Um, Absolutely adorable, isn't it? I love the art on this one too. I think I might have pulled some. Yeah, these are cards that are in the cat. There's also a dog tarot, of course. These are some of the cards in the cat tarot deck that I thought were exceptional. But gosh, the art, right? The art, the inspiration. It's so much. It's so dense. Now, there are other ideas for tarots. Like this is not from a deck. This is a print by Thiago Coria. And it's showing a devil card with like a fresh cat, right? Cats are often devilish. I don't think this is very literal, but I do like the design. It's a little bit on the harsh side for me, but I do like the design. And I have had cats that are interchangeable with the devil. And I like the chains and stuff. I mean, it's a cool design. This is a piece of stationery. So again, not actually a card deck by Jennifer Jerrytone. This is the Empress done as a cat. Very different styles. You can see the crystals in the background. This one is a poster by Illy Bays, B-A-Y-S, the 4 of Cups. In this case, they are wine cups. Oh, you have the cat tarot, Lisa. It's absolutely beautiful art. 78 pictures. That's crazy. If you love what's on the cover and on the back, you're probably going to love the other, 74, right? I thought this one was funny too. Uh, this one is by Cora Moon, The Cat Chariot. I just like this idea because it has to be a chariot, like something with wheels, and they gave the cat this kind of weird harnessy thing to make him into the chariot or her. But I thought really cute. This is a more traditional card with a bit of a joke. This I ordered as a tank top, right? This is by Denise, a crafty Denise, and this is on T Public, the website where people can upload. I have ribbon candy hooking stuff on there, but they can upload images. I loved the Empress with the black cat. I just love this image. So I ordered it as a tank top to encourage my butt to get back to the gym. I thought, if I have this thing on, I'm going to like the way I look in the mirror, because of course you always have to face the mirror. Now I'm looking, wait a minute, I've got a card in front of me that says no show, no show, no show. So I'm not doing it again. If you have a paper and a pencil, let's play a quick game. We've done this before. I'm looking at a card that I will show you in a minute, and it is a tarot card, and the card is the Magician. Throw away everything you know about a magician. I'm going to describe the card to you, and if you feel like playing along, you draw what I'm describing, and then we'll see how close your drawing is to what I'm looking at, the actual card. This is a game that might exist but in other places, but we have always played this game in our family. At Christmas, especially when my Aunt Joan was alive, we would take turns looking at art books and coffee table books and just take turns describing. And it was so much fun, and it was um, so productive in terms of design. I mean, I went into art, and so did my sister, for our jobs, right? So, I mean, this is a very good game if you have time to play it, even over Zoom with a friend. It's a very good game to get into. Melanie says, can you use the images? Are they copyrighted? You really can't use the images because they are copyrighted. If you check public domain or Gutenberg project, or you just type in copyright free or public domain tarot card, there are a lot of cards that are out of copyright at this point. So there are lots of tarot cards that you could tweak to be completely your own design. But these images are copyrighted because they are contemporary artists. In the US at the moment, the artist has to have been dead for 60 years if there hasn't been some kind of maintenance done, like Disney-wise or advertising-wise, Dr. Seuss, something like that, Random House, with maintaining the copyright. So the ones we just looked at, for the most part, were copyright images, but check the public domain. There are tons, and with a few tweaks, you have an original design. So I'm describing the Magician card to you. And at the 3/4 of the way down, there is a diagonal slope. So the horizon line is a diagonal that goes on the left from low to on the right a little bit higher. Just a soft diagonal, not like a drastic, right? Just a soft diagonal. And it's going to create a table. So your horizon line is a diagonal line that makes up a table. Laying on the table, there is what looks like a knitting needle with a ball at the end. You know how some knitting needles have the ball at the end to stop you going through all the loops. And laying right parallel to that knitting needle is another one of the spindles with thread on it. The thread kind of looks like a triangle shape. So there is a knitting needle laying on the table, and there is a spindle laying parallel to it on the table. Also on the table, there's a little coaster, and it looks like a little mug rug that's laying quite flat. And it has, and you can opt out of this, but it has what looks like a 5-pointed star on it. You can opt out of that because obviously that does have connotation. Up to you. But you could opt out of putting the rug down at all, but that is one of the elements on the table. Otherwise, the knitting needle and the spindle. Now, sitting at the table is the main character who will fill most of your picture. And she is in profile. It is an older lady. She is facing, looking at your drawing, she is facing to the left in profile. In her left hand, she is holding a crochet hook. And in her right hand, she is holding a ball of yarn. She's cut off at the waist, so it's hard to tell what her whole outfit is. But she has what looks like a turtleneck sweater on. So she's holding a ball of yarn and she's holding a crochet hook. Her hands kind of look like this, so I'm cheating a little bit. Very stylized. Just for accuracy, she's in the background, kind of under the yarn. She's got a shawl. She's got one earring coming down. And in her hair, she has a pretty barrette that looks like a sideways figure 8. The only other thing in the picture is that over her shoulder, there are 2 flowers coming up. Very, very tall, impossibly tall. And they have kind of a tulip top, and they are very straight and parallel to each other. And they have 1 tulip on top each, and there's tons of leaves otherwise. So 2 tall, like pillar type flowers coming up with a tulip top on each stem, tons of flowers, tons of leaves, very stylized. So see if you can get that crystallized. It's a very simple drawing. And then I'm going to show you in just a second what the actual image looks like. So if you do not want to see the image, do not look up yet. Keep your drawing going. And if you do want to see the image or you have finished a sketch, hang on, I'm just finding my place. Oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm looking for the one that says, do not show. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, there we go. This is the image that I was just describing. So, Melanie, in answer to your question, if you just did a design that I described, I bet nobody's design looks like this. I bet even though this is a fairly simple silhouette, right, there's not a lot of elements happening here, I bet your design looks different. You could use your design to make a rug, right? If you like it at all, or you could refine it a little bit, you could use your design. Because what I described is one of the cards in the Yarn Tarot deck, but I bet it doesn't look like this. And that is the beauty of this game, is it is so much fun to draw something and you think, oh, I'm nailing it. I'm getting all these details and I got this. But usually it looks nothing like the thing the person's describing. And it's not supposed to. That's the great fun of this game, isn't it? So this is something to think about, because even nowadays, this is a great game that you can play with friends over Zoom. You know, sometimes you get talked out and you still want to be together and spend some time. Playing a game like this, if you're both creative, you probably really enjoy this. Take out whatever coffee table book you have or even a magazine, open it up and start describing. Choose something simple to start, right? And just emphasize the fact that it's not supposed to look like the thing. You're drawing your version of the thing and you can't see. It's infinite. It's infinite variety, isn't it? It's like Shakespeare says, infinite variety. Now, I want to transition to a conversation on Ouija boards. This is another subject that was sort of highlighted in the History magazine, games that have been played historically, spiritualist games, Halloween games. The Ouija board is one that I feel I can't brush over without at least covering a little bit. I'm going to cover it at least a little bit because this is a beautiful design area to tap into. Again, regardless how you feel about a Ouija board, my personal feeling is that it's complete nonsense. But do I love the art? I love the art, right? I love the art. The planchette, everything about it to me it's magical. It's fun, right? So I did a little bit of digging on this subject too. I thought this was something that we could, get into. I did this picture of like Ouija boards over the years. And I thought this was extremely decorative and pretty, because we tend to think of Ouija boards as being like the one on the top left or some of the simpler ones. Not necessarily so. So I did a little bit on the history of the Ouija board. One of the most useful sites that I found in researching is Smithsonian.com. Smithsonian. So they're not fooling around, are they? They know their stuff. This candy corn is getting me. I just love it so much. It tastes like punch or something. So I found this article that was written by Linda Rodriguez McRobbie on the Ouija board on the Smithsonian website. And let me just read part of it to you because it is so interesting. In February 1891, the first few advertisements started to appear in papers. Ouija, the wonderful talking board, boomed a Pittsburgh toy and novelty shop, describing a magical device that answered questions about the past, present, and future with marvelous accuracy. As promised, never failing amusement and recreation for all the classes. A link, and again, 1891, so going into the Gilded Age, right? A link between the known and unknown, the material and the immaterial. Another advertisement in a New York newspaper declared, "It is interesting and mysterious," and testified, "as proven at patent office before it was allowed, price 150." In other words, they're touting the fact that it was tested at the patent office. And the patent office, I guess the follow through thought is they would not have allowed the thing to go through if it seemed like bunk. But they did because they found it successful. They're playing with the Ouija board. The mysterious talking board was basically what's sold in board game aisles today, a flat board with letters of the alphabet arrayed in two semicircles above the numbers 1 through 9 and the words yes and no in the uppermost corners, goodbye at the bottom, accompanied by a planchette, a teardrop-shaped device, usually with a small window in the body, right, mine has a window too, used to maneuver about the board. The idea was that two or more people would sit around the board, place their fingertips on the planchette, pose a question, and watch, dumbfounded, as the planchette moved from letter to letter, spelling out the answers seemingly of its own accord. The biggest difference is in the materials nowadays. The board is now usually made of cardboard rather than wood, and the planchette is plastic. Though truth in advertising is hard to come by, especially in products of the 19th century, the Ouija board was interesting and mysterious. It actually had been proven to work at the patent office, and the patent was allowed to proceed. Today, even psychologists believe that it may offer a link between the known and the unknown, subjective. But Karen says, you probably know about the First Lady's. Yes, I do. That's coming up. Good one. Ouija board was used in the White House by Mary Todd Lincoln, right? After her son died. Sad circumstances, but this is the era, right, of interest in spiritualism. The makers of the first, now the Ouija board falls into a category of boards that are sometimes called talking boards. They're not literally talking, but the idea is somebody is talking to you in response to the questions that you pose. The makers of the first talking board asked the question, this is like a bit of trivia, but apparently it's a true story. The makers of the first Ouija board couldn't decide what to call it, and they asked the question of the board, what should we call the board? And the answer was spelled out, Ouija, Ouija. And when they asked what it meant, the board replied, good luck. Take it or leave it, right? That's the story. That's all she wrote. I can't say whether it's true or not. I would say I don't know anything about this. I'm not a Ouija board historian by any stretch of the imagination. But we means yes, ja in French and Romantic languages, and ja means yes in Germanic languages. So it seems to me like it's yes, like it's a board because it has a yes or no on the board. It would seem to me like they're saying we, ja, like two different versions of the answer yes. But maybe not. Maybe not. I am not a historian and I don't know. That's just what I always assumed. The Ouija board, in fact, came straight out of 19th century American obsession with spiritualism, the belief that the dead are able to communicate with the living. Spiritualism, which had been around for years, hit Europe hard in 1848 with the sudden prominence of the Fox sisters in upstate New York. We're going to come to them in just a minute. What a story, the Fox sisters. The Fox sisters, nutshell, and then we're coming back to them, claimed to receive messages from spirits who rapped on walls in answer to questions, recreating this feat or channeling in parlors across the state. So they performed quite a bit. Aided by the stories about the celebrity sisters and other spiritualists in the new national press, spiritualism reached millions of adherents at its peak in the second half of the 19th century. Spiritualism worked for Americans. Now, this is a generalization. Disclaimer. It was compatible with Christian dogma. Let me qualify that because that sounds abrasive, but I think what they're saying is that in terms of it being a parlor game activity, you could play with a Ouija board on Saturday night and still attend church on Sunday, right? In your mind, it was a recreation, it was a hobby, it was a bit of fun. If it worked or not, didn't have anything to do with your presence at church the next morning. I think that's what they mean by that. So don't take that badly. Uh, this is an article, right, written for the Smithsonian. This is not set in stone. I'm treading carefully here, as you can imagine, because we all feel differently. Spiritualism worked for Americans. Okay, wait a minute. It was an acceptable, even wholesome activity to contact spirits at seances through automatic writing or table turning parties in which participants would place their hands on a small table and watch it begin to shake or rattle while they all declared that they were not moving it. The movement also offered solace in an era when the average lifespan was about 50 years old. Women died in childbirth, children died of disease, men died in war. Even Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of the venerable president, conducted seances in the White House after their 11-year-old son died of a fever in 1862. During the Civil War, spiritualism was at a huge peak. People were trying to connect with soldiers and sons, fathers, husbands who had been died or missing, uh, never came home. Right, so you can understand how this would appeal to a lot of people. Just the off chance, that kind of grief, just the off chance that it could work was a comfort. Right, it was something that you could do, something that you could try. Um, and this is part of the article. I'm referencing a man named Murch. I forget what his last name was, but he has definitively written. He's been researching the Ouija board since like the 1970s, something like that. Communicating with the dead was common. It wasn't seen as bizarre or weird, explains Murch. It's hard to imagine that now. We look at it and we think, why are you opening up the gates of hell? But but opening the gates of hell wasn't on anyone's mind when the Kennard Novelty Company started producing the first Ouija board. What was on their mind was not opening up the gates of hell, it was opening up people's wallets, right? Because here's an opportunity. Spiritualism is already a thing in Europe. Of course, it's going to come to the US. You might as well accommodate it by manufacturing products that will appeal to people who are already aware of this as a phenomenon. So let me show you some graphics of, Karen says, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, crazy. Yeah. And there's so many great books. If you have a recommendation, let me know. I'm trying to remember the name. What was it? I just listened to a book over at the end of the summer. It was set in Newport. I'm going to have to think on it. I listened to it on Audible. It was fantastic. It was about a psychic that came to one of the Newport mansions. I'm not going to spoil it at all, but it was absolutely thrilling. My friend Rory Raven, who lives in Salem now, he was formerly of Providence. He is a mentalist by profession, and he considers it a profession, right? He does not proclaim to be magical. He considers it work. So he can do lots of this kind of stuff. It's very appealing. He's very appealing, and he's very good at it. But he now works in Salem giving tours and stuff. His name's Rory Raven. You should look him up. He's amazing, amazing intellectual with this incredible, vast knowledge of spiritualism, the history of spiritualism, and he's also an awesome writer. I'm trying to think of the name. It was a very small press, maybe even a print on demand. He wrote a book on spiritualism that was also set in Newport. And besides him being my friend, it was the best fiction book on spiritualism I have ever read. It was so exciting, thrilling, and interesting, intellectual, fantastic. But again, his name is Rory Raven. A great recommendation for that. I read it years ago. When it first came out, he sent one to me and signed it and everything, and I read it immediately. God, it was good. God, it was so good. So let's look at some images of Ouija boards over the years. Because in terms of designs and graphics, now this is just kind of culturally interesting. This is people using a Ouija board and taking it very seriously. So, this is popular culture. This is mainstream. Here's Norman Rockwell on the May 1920 cover of the Post, the Saturday Evening Post, illustrating a couple using a Ouija board. And he's having a bit of fun with it because you can tell the woman is she's well into it. And it seems like suggested that the guy is kind of um, directing it to say a certain thing to her. We don't know. We can guess he's flirting and it's fun. And it's a means to an end. Teddy calling. Sorry about that. But I thought that was interesting. Norman Rockwell. And oh, here's me and the kids. When I saw Andrea the other night in Providence at the Providence Flea Market, at this entrance, they had this big sign that says "The Witch's Night Out." Providence PVD. It was the flea, the Providence flea. But they had this planchette over on the side with information. Gosh, there were dozens and dozens of artists. I showed you the stuff on the mantle that I bought. There are all these kinds of primitive dolls and so much fun. Was it called? Nope, definitely not the Family Reunion. Definitely no. Oh, Karen did Woodrow Wilson and Grover Cleveland use it as well. Interesting. Sue says, interesting book, Ghostland, An American History in Haunted Places by Colin Dickey. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. That sounds amazing, Suze. Thank you. Suze, if you think of it, can you just send me an email or a PM so that I don't forget, because the thread goes away as soon as I shut the thing. I would love to see that. It was so much fun. So this is the first Ouija board, 1891, put out by the Kennard Novelty Company in Baltimore, Maryland. It's wood. It's wood on wood. So the planchette does not have that peekaboo window yet. This was the first one. And this is the way that it was marketed. I thought this was super interesting. We go same year to a different design. People jumping on the bandwagon fast. This is called the Esperito. So like spirit, like Esperito. 1891, W.S. Reed Company in Leominster, Massachusetts. Still wood on wood, but you can see the design is very different. Still no peekaboo window. And I like how they say the Esperito or Revelator. It's like they're covering their bases. They want to use every kind of magical word in a patent that they can think of before the next person does. This is called the Genie, and this was different. By the way, I got these photos from a website called sfomuseum.org. Fantastic and comprehensive history of talking boards, right? Talking board games. I'm just taking a quick sip while you look at the Genie. See if you can figure out how this works by looking at this device. Talk about a cool thing to find in an antique store, right? 1895, the Genie was also known as the Witch's Fortune Teller. Interesting. This was put out by Milton Bradley Company in Springfield, Massachusetts. I think they were still actually in Salem, Massachusetts at that point, but we'll let that go. The Witch's Fortune Teller. So they are now equating the idea of a fortune-telling talking board game with being a witch. So a little bit of a push, right? A little bit, I feel, derogatory. Interesting, isn't it? Are you wondering, how does this work? It doesn't open, right? It slides. And you see it slides on a little ball, and it's got a little window in the middle where it will catch certain letters. So I had to figure out how this works. I went deep dive onto the internet, and I found this advertisement. This is how it works. You still put your hand on the board, and of course everybody's going to say, I wasn't guiding it, but the board moves one way or the other, and it puts a letter into that little peaky hole. So interesting, isn't it, that this came up so quickly as an alternative device for the same purpose. This is another one that comes up much later, 1933. The design of the board does not change that much between the 1890s and the 1930s. This one is called the Mystifying Oracle. This is put out by William Fuld, F-U-L-D, of Baltimore, Maryland, and this is actually a design on metal. So this is like a tray, right? I mean, really, in the planchette is also metal, and it does have the peaky hole. The peaky hole is quite large at this point. So interesting. I mean, I would think completely different movement, the feel of metal on metal as opposed to the wood. I think this would slide real well, would get scratched up real fast too. But it has a great sort of Art Deco feel to it, doesn't it? Framework style. You know, in terms of being a rug hooking design, you could dial this down quite a bit. You couldn't use all these letters, right? Could you? But you could put some imagery in it. You could put the planchette in it. You could use the font and create something that is very personal, fun, right? Good sort of Halloween time design. This is another huge departure from the original board, 1943, the Magi board or Magi board. I just realized when I was looking at this that Magi, like it has the root of the word magic in it, like the gift of the Magi. I mean, interesting, isn't it? The Magi board, 1943, by Psychic Graph, Graf Company Inc. in Hartford, Connecticut. This is all cardboard. Now, I'm going to show you how this works too. This is something different because the conversation had been coming up a lot. Well, of course people are pushing the board. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Well, they're going to create something that does not work with on the premise of being pushed. So that's where we're going with this. I'm going to show you an image of this in a minute, but this is the next sort of evolution. Perhaps, goodbye, yes, no. So interesting. We're getting into the sort of what's that thing called? The black ball, like the bowling ball. Is that? Oh no, the billiard ball. What's that thing called? When you see your fortune in it. Is that like is that an 8 ball, or where am I pulling that out of? I feel like it's called an 8 ball. You know that you shake it and it says like yes, maybe, or maybe next week or something. That kind of very ambivalent kind of answer. This is the Mystic Answer Board. 1 year later, in 1944, put out by Remington Morse in Chicago. The Mystic Answer Board is a lot like the Ouija board, but it's giving you a lot more wiggle room. Reception good, reception bad. It's like a switchboard, like an operator switchboard. Crazy 8. Thank you, Suze. Interesting, right? Interesting. And I'm going to say it because it's right there. To me, the figure in the middle looks like a Madonna. Maybe not. I'm sorry if that sounds sacrilege. I love Mary. I love Madonna imagery. It really looks a bit. It looks a bit religious to me. I mean, it is maybe like it has a kind of feel of an altar boy costume that she's wearing. Maybe not. Maybe it's just me. It usually is. But I thought interesting. They're trying to cross a few things here. This is called the Mystic Answer Board. So they're really addressing the idea of you have a question, I've got an answer. So this is another huge departure from the original board. This is the Stargazer, a mystical question board tray, 1944. So same year as the Mystic Answer Board, put up by Alice Lee Manufacturing, also in Chicago. It's a design, on paper. It looks like it's on a wooden or metal tray, but the thing about this is it's touted as being portable. So kind of weird because, I mean, isn't any board game portable? I mean, can't you move it from one table to the next? It ain't a 3,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. But this is being touted as being portable. You pick it up by the handles. So for whatever reason, I'm sure they caught a lot of shoppers with this one little tweak, this one word. And it's a Stargazer. Look here. So this is making some kind of a connection to astronomy, right? I was going to say astrology, but not really, astronomy. And being a known and accepted, very viable science, they make sense that they would want to cross over to that, doesn't it? Because it becomes a bit more viable itself as a game, as a toy, as a board game. Mystical question boards, the Stargazer. I mean, it's just funny. The history of the Ouija board, to me, feels like the history of marketing, doesn't it? I mean, this is like, they're getting good as time goes on here with this. This is the Mysterious Planchette of 1940. So, I'm sorry, I put this one in out of sequence. This one's a little bit early. It's 4 years earlier than the Stargazer. The Mysterious Planchette, the emphasis is on the planchette here. So this does not have a window in it. I don't know if, I have not used a Ouija board. I'm guessing that without the window, you're looking for where the point lands. But anyway, this was put out by the Planchette Company, also of Chicago. Chicago is like a hornet's nest in the 1930s, 1940s of talking board games. So interesting. Yes, no, and goodbye. Very straightforward, kind of a return to the original. This is called the Yogi, the Amazing Answer Board, 1944, put up by Lee Industries, also in Chicago. Incidentally, these are all different companies. I have not repeated any of these Chicago companies. They just are all in Chicago. So the Yogi board is pulling on like Eastern religion, Eastern thought. Interesting that they would cross over to something that was not very well fleshed out or well known, widespread. It was a word that people might have heard, but they would not have a handle on the meaning. This one also glows in the dark, which was pretty cool back then. I like how they're pulling on Eastern lore, or the very, very loose idea of it, how they made it glow in the dark, which was kind of new technology at the time, and also how they're also using the word fini in French. It's like, yes, no, but then fini, like all done, bye-bye. Just kind of funny. They're really bending over backwards with this answer board to be really international, right? Interesting. you know, we don't see a change between the 1940s and the 1970s, but when we get to the 1970s, we are looking at something extraordinary here. This really is so different. You know, we just looked at a series of talking boards that came in all kinds of configurations. This is a departure. Um, this is a real departure. So this is 1972. Oh, hang on a sec. No, I'll come back. I'll come back. You know what? Wait a minute. I won't come back. Let me show you. Remember I showed you the Metacom? Nope, that's not it. Wait a minute. I thought I had one. You know, let's just go in order. I'm sorry. We have enough brain power to be able to do this. Glow in the dark was not dodgy. They pulled everything that done it. Interesting. I don't know anything about the history of glow in the dark. I didn't realize it was as old as that. Because my kids still have black light, glow in the dark stuff, and they think it is like magic. They think it's actually magic, which is kind of incredible. But let's go a little bit out of order here because I screwed up. But I wanted to show you this board. I'm trying to find my text for it. Anyway, I can't. We can figure it out. This is a 19, I think, 72 board. So this was called, I'm so mad at myself. It was like called the human circuitry board, something like that. Let me see. Hang on. No, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm just checking my notes real fast. No, I screwed up. So, well, that's all right. We can see. I mean, it's a very complicated board, and I know you're getting a larger picture than me. It was supposed to be like a circuit board. And besides having like the numbers and the letters and a yes, no, and a goodbye, obviously there's a lot more choices here. So you could drill down, and it used a planchette also. You could drill down really finely into something so specific that it was like on the scale of a fortune cookie, like very focused information you were getting. Lisa says, I wonder why we don't see more of these earlier Ouija boards. I always see ones dated in the late 70s at flea markets and antiques mall. You know, I think there's probably, I don't know, Lisa, but I think there's probably a huge collector's market for them because they're so decorative. Like, you know, and anybody I think who's interested in any kind of spiritualism or New Age thought at all, I think would be interested in having something like that. I feel like they also could have easily broken the wooden ones and have been thought of as throwaway things like most board games. So even board games from like my era, the 70s and 80s, can be super collectible. I know the Happy Days game. I wish I held on to that one with the Fonz and Richie and everything. Some of them went through the roof at a certain point. All the Halloween games with moving parts. I think it's just a scarcity problem. This one could be on eBay. This was called the Human Battery Circuit Board. That's what it was called. The Human Battery Circuit Board. And again, real specific. So I mean, if you, God knows what you were doing besides playing a game, if you know what I mean. But if it hits you close to anything that was real or resonated, you'd probably flip your flipper. And this is how it was used. I had to dig for a picture of this in use too. So they are still using a planchette. Glow in the dark in the 1940s was uranium. Oh, like uranium glass. Okay, Suze, like uranium glass, right? You see that in like the Vaseline glass and all of those glasses with uranium content. That makes sense. That makes sense. I always wanted to collect the Vaseline glass because it has that glow to it. I mean, sooner or later, that's going to be one of the upcoming collections. So this is it in use. So you are still using a planchette. It's not clear whether it comes with it or whether you have to buy it separately, but it's very easy to buy these separately too. Now, this is what I wanted to show you before. To remember this game that we looked at, and I said this addressed the problem that people were accusing other people of pushing the planchette. This made it impossible. So this is a wooden device, almost with like a little weight on the bottom of it, that you could still push this, right? But maybe it was just something new. It was an alternative. So maybe cut down on some fights in the living room or whatever, accusations, wild accusations. But I thought interesting period photo from the 1940s showing people using it, looking very scientific. This game is called the Metacom Psychic Communicator, and this came out in 1947. So it's a strange wooden apparatus that hovers over the board to spell out messages. In this photo, participating in the seance are creators Eddie and Leopold. I'm going to be careful with this word. Fuchs, Fuchs, and Nat Liebler, who made their living in the diamond business. Helping in this photo is Liebler's sister, Mrs. Stephen Reinhold. In 1947, women were named after their husbands, right? So that's why we get Mrs. Stephen Reinhold. We don't know her first name. Standing in is an investigator of psychic phenomenon whose name is Dr. Thomas L. Garrett. There is no mention of what kind of a doctor he is, but he looks very important with a stethoscope and his bow tie. Presumably, he could jump in during a medical emergency if needed, right? Like some kind of a possession or something like that. Taking it very seriously here. So these boards are business. This is money. This is big, right? Again, however you feel about spiritualism, this was something that was marketed successfully, that made a lot of people a lot of money. If people who are involved in the diamond business are suddenly branching out to varieties of Ouija boards, that says a lot, doesn't it? So the idea of using a Ouija board was so popular that it reached other facets of life, not just, sorry, coming to my picture again. Ooh, we're getting to the end of the slideshow. Not just games, but music. So, for example, there were a bunch of songs that were about Ouija boards. This is sheet music. I could not find this on eBay because I wanted it to frame it, and it's not there at the moment. This one's called Ouija Ouija Tell Me Do, and this song is from 1920. And I had to search for the lyrics, right? Because they weren't on this picture. I had to search for the lyrics, and I want to read them to you because if this is not a moment in time, I don't know what is. Oh, Karen, you said I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the boards were destroyed either because, oh, they were thought to bring bad mojo. That's a great thought. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I like that. That makes a lot of sense. Ouija, Ouija, tell me do. And this is the lyric. There is a game played by nearly every family, seems to be the thing. Rich folks and poor folks, this little game to see what future days may bring. Right across the hall from me there lives a girlie dear, and when her girlfriends call each night, why, this is what I hear. Ouija, Ouija, tell me do, tell me if my loving babe loves me true. Tell me quick and tell me fast, is our love too pure and good to really last? Oh, Ouija, Ouija, you know me. I will never tell him, don't you see? Once he used to bring me candy by the box, now he only calls to have me darn his socks. Is he true, the old sly fox? Tell me, Ouija, do. The little board, this is continuation of the lyric, the little board is the ruler of the nation now. Some game talk of fun right in your own home settles any little row. Most every home has one. Old maids love it most to death and play it night and day. And one maid laughed and lost her breath. Maid is misspelled weirdly. When she heard one girl say, Ouija, Ouija, tell me do. Are the men who marry girlies always true? Should the supper table wait for the ones who really love to come home late? Oh, Ouija, Ouija, should I swear if up on his coat I found a hair? If your husband talking in his sleep says pearl, does that mean a present or some other girl? Is it a girl or is it a pearl? Tell me, Ouija, do. Now, if that ain't a commentary on the time, this is 1920, this song came out. I just thought that was like a remarkable lyric. I am not a feminist by any means myself, but that is outrageous, this whole song. Sue says, I got a Ouija board for Christmas in 1965, and I was using it. My mother proceeded to throw it in the trash. See, we get such information on the show, don't we? We put out questions, we get conclusions right like that. Just amazing. But you can see why I wanted that piece of sheet music. I thought it was so interesting. I also love sheet music, and you know I love to sing. So I would have loved to have heard that and tried to sing along with it. Funny coincidence, incidentally, happened today because you know I used to do some cabaret singing and stuff like that. And my buddy who I always used to play with, Joe Monona, if you've heard any of my songs, he's always playing piano and all the brass instruments, him and his brother, with me. And I was working last night. I've been super busy, but I was working last night because I've been thinking about him, and I haven't been in touch in years, although we know we love each other, and that never changes, right? He's one of those friends. I started writing him an email last night, and I didn't finish it. And this morning, wouldn't you know, it's been years, he wrote to me. And I said, this is just a crazy coincidence, isn't it? And he said, we have to get together and record some more songs and catch up and everything. And we do, because he's not that far away. But if I had the sheet music, I'd put it in front of him and I'd say, Joe, give me some Ouija, will you? And let's see what it sounds like. I don't play, so I would love to hear the tune. This is a different piece of sheet music um, by Margaret McKinnon, also not available. And you can see in this one, there's a man playing the Ouija board and reaching out to someone who has obviously passed, who appears in ghost-like form. Um, Interesting, right? And wait a minute, there's more. This one is a bit odd. So I forget. I think this one's also no, this is a 19th century one. This is an earlier piece of sheet music called Ouija Mine. So this is earlier, and you could see how this could be late 1890s, not super helpful with the image of the Ouija board, because it will evolve into be like a living room thing that is absolutely appropriate for people of religion too. So this is like pushing it a little bit far. Oh, thanks, Suze. I love that song too. No Moon at All. I think that is the and the piano player that I played with, Joe Minona, he turned that in. It's a jazz song from the 1920s. And I rewrote most of the lyrics for it in the version I sang, but he turned that into like a New Orleans style funeral dirge, and I absolutely love the version of it because of his amazing playing. The night. Okay, wait a minute. Let me show you one more. No, let me do this first. So 1920, the song called, the sheet music I just showed you called, was that one Ouija Mine? Hang on. Wait a minute. Let me just double check my years. Want to be accurate, even though we're just fooling around, right? Hold on just a second. Let me come. Yeah, no, that was it. So no, I thought this was 1890s. No, this is 1920. The 1920s brought the second big Ouija craze after the 1890s that swept the country. Ouija boards were everywhere, and some even wrote and sang songs about them. Ouija Mine was written in 1920 by Sam N. Lewis and Joe Young, with music by Willie White. Feel free to sing along to this song. Light your mystic sight. Okay, we don't know how the tune goes, but the lyric goes, light your mystic sight, can guide me right. Oh, won't you tell me, Ouija, why he said goodbye and made me cry? Maybe the Beatles were pulling from this a little bit. Just kidding. Oh, I won't tell you, oh, won't you tell me, Ouija, find what's on his mind, for love is blind. Oh, won't you tell me, you dearie, spelled out Deare. That was a big part of it, I guess. Oh, Ouija, that's the spirit. You're getting near it, for that's the name he once called me, dearie. That's pretty generic, isn't it? Within my eyes the love will glow, just like the skies of long ago. Will he return for the sake of auld lang syne? Please answer yes or no, Ouija. Feel my fingers slipping, soul within me gripping. Tell me, Ouija, does he love me? Mine. So, I mean, these were popular songs in the 1920s, presumably, and they represent how far this craze had gone. Now, this is the one that is older. This is a lot older. This is an 1853 song with sheet music. So this is like getting up to Civil War, right? So you're seeing what looks like a picture from the South, right? I'm drawing conclusions. And the song is called Spirit Rappings, 1853. So this is another piece of sheet music I could not track down in person, but I thought it'd just be an interesting thing to own, wouldn't it? It would be a great find. So the idea of making songs about, now this is about, not about the Ouija board, but about more broadly spiritualism, because they're rapping. This is table rapping, which goes back much earlier than the American Ouija board, right? But still the same idea, writing songs about the practice of trying to contact the dead. You know, this reminds me of a horrible thing that happened to me when I was in graduate school. I was studying mostly Shakespeare, and I went to Trinity because I wanted to study with a specific Shakespearean scholar called Mila Reggio, who I just worshipped, her essays and stuff, and I did. But on the side, I took a lot of classes on Victorian literature. It was one of the areas I was interested in, specifically spiritualism, not just like Frankenstein and the use of electricity and things like that, but all kinds of spiritualism and the kind of new wave of ideas that happened in the Victorian period. And we read one book, I can't remember what it was. It was one that's not available in print, right? So you had to print it on demand to download it and read the text to participate in this conversation. And the teacher was just such a jerk. I mean, I don't always say, I don't usually say that, but she really was such a jerk. I think she was my age. And it was just one of those situations where we did not hit it off. And it was clear everything I said was wrong. Whereas in the class with the Shakespearean scholar, I mean, she always gave me like an exemplary, like above an A. Every chance she got, everything, I was above an A, right? I was like in a different stratosphere. This teacher, I couldn't say anything right. And in this class on spiritualism, we were reading this book, and I wish I could remember the name of it because it was interesting, and I'm sure I have it somewhere. But it was about this table who sent notes to people. And when I say table, I mean that in the book, the table was writing messages to people with what I don't know. Like they would put a paper on it, and the table would write a note that was generated by the table. Like I'm not talking about humans sitting at the table and writing each other magical notes. I'm saying in the story, the idea was that the table wrote notes to people like Valentine's. And I remember I made, I'm sure, a stupid joke about the table because I thought, what a silly premise, right? What a very light premise. And she went ballistic on me in front of the whole class because I was being dismissive about a subject that is quite serious, like spiritualism. I wasn't. If you know me, you know I wasn't. But it was such a crazy conversation. And the takeaway that I got from that was that she brought my grade level down to an A, and it was like above an A plus, which made me very angry. It sounds spoiled, but I had worked very hard, and I was working full time, and I was going to grad school at night full time, so that really got me. But my takeaway from that was like spiritualism is one of these things, like religion, guys, a form of, right, that you don't talk about because I really pushed her buttons accidentally and I never wanted to do that again. And I was very sorry, mostly because of my grade. But I mean, it was just it was a crazy interaction. I will never forget that. It did not go well. Speaking of crazy, I'm going to run over a hair, but I have got to share this. Do I? Or should I save the Fox sisters? You know, I'm thinking maybe I should save the Fox sisters because I could put the Fox sisters of upstate New York. Don't read about the Fox sisters over the weekend. Don't do spoilers. I think I'm going to start Monday for coffee time with the Fox sisters. I think I will. I'll do the Fox sisters and Lizzie Borden on Monday. It's too good to rush, but I do want to. It's too good to rush. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Let's save that for Monday coffee time. I did do a drawing for the Fox sisters. This is one of the other things I wanted to show you tonight. This is a new design that I'll tell you about on Monday that I was working on to show the three Fox sisters in their house that they grew up in upstate New York. Very mystical story. That's available on Ribbon Candy Hooking. A lot of the subjects we talk about, some of the designs I showed you that I've done in the past, are available on Ribbon Candy Hooking. You know I love to sell stuff over the weekend, especially last weekend before Halloween. It's a good time to get some of these, designs to work on. But let's start on Monday with the Fox sisters. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and then I won't have to rush the story. But don't look it up. It's fun, and you don't want to know the ending. Like you really don't. We'll leave it for Monday. How's that? So, musical alert. Sting wrote a song about tarot called The Shape of My Heart. I know that song. I didn't know that that was about tarot. I mean, I can hear that playing in my head. Interesting. I'm going to put that into my phone on Pandora as soon as we break. So, oh, me too, Linda Ann. I'm so looking forward to Monday. It was fun tonight. You know, I wanted to do another large show like this, talking about things that are relatable to Halloween, right? I didn't want to go full trick or treat, but we did a little bit at the beginning with some of our candy trivia and some different things. I wanted to go in some different directions because my hope was to leave you over the weekend with the idea of and the fun of the holiday, the way that it was, the nostalgia of it, right? So I hope that you enjoyed tonight's show. I really enjoyed being with you. And I will look forward to seeing you on Monday where we will start a conversation on the Fox sisters, and then we will move to the story of Lizzie Borden. And I started my Lizzie Borden rug also 2 years ago, I think. Visited that house many times. So we have a lot to catch up on Halloween Monday, noon Eastern Standard Time. I will see you then, and I will be looking forward to it. So have a great weekend, everybody. And if you need me over the weekend, you can write me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Have a great weekend. Thumbs up, share, like. Thank you to Patreon members. Appreciate your support. I'm working on a Patreon pattern for the month of November. That'll be out November 1st. Have a great weekend.